Welcome to another edition of the Good and Funny podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Goodman, and I'm currently driving from Jacksonville, Florida en route to Columbia, South Carolina. It is about 12:45 in the morning here on Friday morning, and my guest tonight, in the morning, whatever you want to call it, is NBC's Rob Dauster. And Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, but since I'm technically the one recording this and I'm the one that's actually going to sound good on the podcast, like I should be the host, right? I get to be the host. You're my guest on your own podcast.
You can be the host. I'll let you be the host.
Good. That's all I've wanted.
Yeah, I mean, do I have to pay you too, or do we just have to call you the host?
Well, how about this? A beer in Minneapolis, we'll call it even.
I'll buy beers for the whole night. Like, I know you can drink more than a beer. I'll take care of you for one whole night. It won't be Scottsdale, though, like we did last year.
Yeah, well, look.
2 years ago. When was Scottsdale? 2 years ago.
2 years ago. I don't think either of us needs to do that again anytime soon.
Scottsdale is good, man.
Scottsdale's a lot of fun, man. Scottsdale is very, very underrated. I had no idea what I was getting into there.
Yeah, I had done that enough in my college days in Tucson of the drive to Scottsdale, but it's better now than I remember it being when I was a college student. Probably because I couldn't afford it. Like now, like it doesn't matter. You know, you don't worry about the money end of it, and I don't know. I'm probably too old for it now too.
Especially at that Final Four, because everywhere we went, everything was covered by Gonzaga fans.
Right. No, it was good. It was good. And I saw all those same Gonzaga fans, by the way, when I was in Arizona, when I was in Phoenix for the doubleheader when they lost to Tennessee. Went out with Adam Morrison again back in December and saw a lot of the same Gonzaga fans.
They all rolled together.
So it's a good night. Yeah, it was a good night. It's a good night. All right, let's get going here. I got about an hour. No, I got about a little over 2 hours. I think I'm going to stop after I get done with the podcast. I got to find a hotel in Savannah, and I think I'm going to get it for 2 nights. So I think I'm going to get the hotel, wake up in the morning, got to write a story, drive to Columbia, get there for the start of the game, and then drive back to Savannah. So I don't have to check in a hotel twice. Like, that would be easy. Leave my crap there, and I don't know, whatever.
That's actually a savvy move, is to just get the hotel in Savannah instead of getting a hotel in Columbia, getting a hotel in Jacksonville, and going back and forth like that. Just Savannah's nicer than Columbia, and Savannah's nicer than Jacksonville. You might as well stay in the one place. Even, like, I don't know if you'll ever be able to have a meal there, except for maybe a breakfast.
I'm going to get one.
You're going to get one.
I just want one. If I can, I just got the times for Saturday's games. They're not great for me being able to get anything other than a breakfast in Savannah, because I think the first game is at like 2:20. Kentucky, I think. Did you get the email or something? Warlock just tweeted out. I think it's like 2:20 is Kentucky Wofford.
That's not good for you.
So, no, not great. I was hoping for a little bit later so I could get lunch, watch maybe a game or two, and then take off. But I'm going to get a good breakfast in Savannah on Saturday morning.
It's even worse, man. It's 12:10 is the first game. That's the LSU game.
Not Kentucky?
No.
No. What?
Yeah, the first game is 12:10. You got the early games.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Oh, I'm going to have to get up early for breakfast. Damn. Oh, that's a killer. That ruined my drive now. All right, let's go. What was the top story for you today, the first day of the tournament, as far as I call it? No disrespect to Bobby Hurley, who is going to come after me if he hears that I'm saying that his win didn't actually exist, or St. John's loss didn't happen. But the number one story of the day of the tournament so far, according to Rob Dauster, is what?
I mean, it has to be John Morant, right? Putting up a triple-double, 17 points, 16 assists, 11 boards. And it's the way that he did it, to me, that stood out more than anything. I don't know how much of the game you had a chance to actually watch, but the kid finished with 9 shots. right? He took 9 shots. And he
only took 9 shots?
He only took 9 shots, and he completely dominated and eviscerated a team that ranked in the top 40 of Ken Palm's defensive efficiency metric and was the second best team in the Big East and the top 25 team all season long. Like, what he did, you got to go back and at least just watch the assist, man, because it was unbelievable.
I will. Yeah, I will. I saw some of it, and he looked like he just controlled the whole game. Every time I would kind of watch, again, it looked like, and this is a great part of Ja, right? Like, everybody thinks, oh, he's just a freak athlete, right? Who dunks on dudes, gets to the rim. But his court vision, to me, and I think he's done a much better job of taking care of the basketball this year. When I talked to Matt McMahon, his coach, early in the year from Murray State, he told me, I think I did the first thing on Ja this year as part of like a notebook I did and went through his recruitment and everything like that. But taking care of the basketball was something that Matt McMahon really made a priority for him instead of throwing the ball all over the gym. And I think he's done a much better job of that, and that's separated. I mean, like, it's unbelievable right now. I mean, it's unbelievable how good he is, again, how athletic, and then he's a much better passer than most guys who are that athletic at the point guard spot.
Yeah, he really reads the game well, and if you just watch the highlights and see him dunking on everybody that comes in his path, and I don't know if you saw the highlight, but he got another one today too. He caught Joey Hauser, who learned the hard way of what happened. He has to learn what a business decision is. He should have gotten out of the way of that one, but everyone sees the highlights and they just kind of assume like, okay, this is a dude that can run and can jump, and you got to teach him how to do everything, and you don't really have to do that. He can read the game. He understands the game. His basketball IQ is off the charts. He sees the floor, and he understands the pass that he has to make and how he's able to get it there. And what I mean by that is it's very easy to like get into the lane and you can see where a guy is that's open, but it's not always easy to be able to make the pass from an angle where it's not going to get deflected. And he is exceptional at being able to do that. And it's not just, kicking to a shooter. It's like driving to the lane and passing around a big man's arms for a drop off for a dunk. It's little things like that are, they're not really like, I don't know if you can coach that. Yes, he is.
He's a cerebral, athletic as hell point guard. And with that, here's what I ask you with that. Is there a debate now? Forget about the debate between John Morant or R.J. Barrett for the number 2 spot. Is there a valid debate that John Morant should be the number 1 pick over Zion Williamson? Why not?
Why not? Because I think that because we've seen what John Morant is. Like, he's going to be somewhere between De'Aaron Fox and John Wall with, like, if everything comes together and everything is perfect for him in the NBA, maybe Russell Westbrook, right? Like, that's kind of the mold that he's going to be in. And we know what that is. With Zion,
doesn't he see the court much better than Russ?
Yeah, but like Russ gets a lot of assists too, but you know what I'm saying though. Like, he's going to end up being that point guard, like in one of those molds. Like, that's what he's going to be. Maybe he's not exactly Russell Westbrook and not exactly John Wall or not exactly De'Aaron Fox, but he's going to kind of be in that mold of a guy that you run everything through, super athletic, super fast, kills you in transition. You don't know how well he's going to end up shooting. Like, that's the prototype. With Zion, we don't really know. We've never seen anything like Zion. And when it comes down to it for me, I tend to lean and gravitate towards taking the player that we've never seen before, because that's the kind of thing where you draft them and all of a sudden they end up being something where you have to adjust what you do to be able to stop him at the NBA level. Like a guy like Steph Curry, right? Part of the reason that Golden State is able to do what they do is because nobody has seen a Steph Curry before, and nobody has an answer for him.
Duplicate it too.
You can't duplicate it, and you have to change. Like the Warriors, everybody's had to change the way that they play. They've changed what the NBA is. They've changed modern basketball because of the way that they play. And I'm not saying that Zion Williamson is going to come in there and do that. I'm saying that he has the potential to be able to be a very important piece, an anchor for a team that does something like that in the future. I think he has top 10 player in the NBA upside. For my money, I think Zion Williamson is the best prospect that we have seen since Anthony Davis. I watch him play, and then I watch the Warriors and see what Draymond Green does, and I just imagine like if you turned Draymond Green and made him like 30 pounds heavier, and then gave him like a 40-inch vertical, and that's to me what Zion Williamson is. Like here's what he is. If you took all the best things that Julius Randle can do,
and he's not gonna talk shit all the time.
No, he's not. Well, here's the thing. Like that, I think that's kind of part of what makes Draymond so good is because he is like there's a lot of crazy with Draymond. And I think that when you have guys like that, like if you look at all the best players in the NBA, like Kawhi Leonard, that dude, the way that he works is not normal. There's a lot of crazy involved there. Michael Jordan, a lot of crazy involved there. You know, Kobe Bryant, like the competitiveness and how the work ethic and all that, like a lot of crazy involved there. And I think that part of like what makes Draymond so good is there's a lot of crazy involved.
So I don't disagree with you. I was just putting it out there for a debate because I think that the only debate now, I don't think there's really a debate between the number 2 pick anymore. I think Ja Morant's the number 2 pick.
I think so too.
I really do.
The only thing that I would
he's got it. RJ doesn't shoot it great. Neither does Ja. Right? Neither guy shoot it great. Ja is just such an exceptional athlete, and again, such a gifted passer. And I don't think those two commonly go hand in hand.
Yes, and the other part of it is you can very easily see where Ja Morant fits in the NBA. With RJ, you don't like. It's hard to see how he fits in, and you know
he's ball dominant.
Yes,
he's ball dominant, and if you put him on certain NBA teams, is he going to be ball dominant? How's he going to play without the ball in his hands? It's not like he's great. Again, he's not a great shooter. Now, I think he's a worker, but I think Ja is too. I think the top 3 players are all like insane workers and all about the right things. They're different kids, but I like all 3 of them character-wise and just the way they work.
One last point on RJ before we can move on. I talked with somebody that is close with him in the last week, and what they basically said is like, the kid is kind of wired in the same way that like a Kawhi Leonard is. And you may not see what the fit is that he has at the NBA level, but he's the kind of dude with the makeup where he's going to make himself into whatever he needs to be at the NBA level. And I don't know if I 100% buy that, but I can kind of see it.
He's bred for this.
Yes.
You got to understand, this kid was bred. I don't know if I told this story on the podcast before, but his dad, Rowan, I don't know if I told you this story, but his dad would put him around the dinner table when he was like 12 years old and have his mom and his sister, they'd stick like a fork in his hand and they'd interview him to prepare him. And when they'd take him to the airport, he was 11 or 12 years old, they would say to him, all right, RJ, you get us to the gate. We're not going to tell you anything. You find a way, you get us to the gate. And I'm like, damn, I should do that to my daughter now. I think I did do it to her. When I heard about that, I think at 15, I tried that with her, and it didn't work very well.
That's actually a great idea. I'm going to steal that. Thanks, Rowan.
Yeah,
I love it.
It is. No, it's a great idea. I mean, again, it's those types of things. Now, I'm not going to interview my daughter, but
I don't even want to be interviewed by you. Your daughter is certainly not going to want to be interviewed by you.
Yeah, exactly. Hell no. So, all right, let's move on. Biggest surprise for you today, in which there weren't a ton of upsets, was what? And you can't use Murray State.
There were 2. One was a positive surprise. One was a negative surprise. So I'm going to go with the positive one and say I thought Minnesota looked unbelievable. They played really, really well. I think part of it was just like they actually made shots. And when you're making the threes, like you're going to look really, really good. But I like the way that they work with Amir Coffey at the point. I think that it moves Dupree McBride off the ball, and I think that works for him. I love Jordan Murphy, and I've kind of been like I remember seeing Daniel Otero when he was a freshman playing up for the 16s on the Howard Pulley, whatever. Like I was at some random Peach Jam game watching the 16s, and he was playing up in like 2015. I remember seeing him there, being like, "Yep, that kid is good. That kid can play." And so I love that front line. it all comes down to, Gabe Kalster is really the only guy that can make shots. I think he's shooting 42% from three, and nobody else on that team is shooting better than 31% from three. So he's got to make shots to kind of free up the space, and they really only go 5 deep, which is never going to be ideal. But I thought they looked really, really good, and I went into this tournament thinking like Minnesota's terrible.
But also, let's face it, like Chris Mack and Louisville, they got as much as they could out of that group. So it wasn't like Minnesota was overwhelmed. I picked Louisville. But again, I figured, like, honestly, those two teams, whoever gets the first win, probably doesn't get the second one against Michigan State, although Michigan State, again, to me, Izzo's done wonders with that group. But getting back to Minnesota, happy for Richard Pitino, with everything that the NCAA kind of screwed him on, putting him against his former, his dad's former program, his former program. It was wrong to do. It was just kind of lazy to do, honestly. And again, it wouldn't have been a big deal if Louisville had just fired Rick Pitino and that was it. But with a lawsuit and everything like that, I just thought it was BS, the fact that they did it. And maybe they just didn't think it through. But there were 10 people in that room. I figured one of them would have been smart enough to say, hey, we can't put Richard Pitino up against Louisville. So I was glad for him, especially because he came into this year. He's had such a roller coaster ride there, right? Like, up, down, this year on the hot seat. And I spent a bunch of time talking to him at the Big Ten tournament. That guy's about as grounded and just kind of like, he doesn't take things personally. He's very as sarcastic as it gets. And again, I was happy for him on that end. All right, disappointed. Who's the biggest disappointment today? I think we'll probably agree on this one too, if I had to guess.
Are you going with Nevada?
You have to, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Have to.
Mm-hmm. I wrote a column on it.
Listen.
I wrote a whole column on it because they are the single most disappointing 29-4 team, I think, in the history of sports.
I saw them 3 times in whatever it was, November, December, and I walked away saying I'm thoroughly unimpressed. Thoroughly unimpressed.
And I find
bad saying it.
I'm having trouble figuring out why it wasn't working the way that it worked last year. And I can't really put my finger on it. And I think what happened was everybody on that team kind of has their eyes elsewhere, right? I don't think the Martin twins wanted to be back in college. I think they wanted to be in the NBA. I don't know if Jordan Caroline wanted to be in college. I think he wanted to be in the NBA. I think Eric Musselman coached this season with his eye on what his next job is going to end up being. I think that you have a whole bunch of guys on that roster that are transfers that came in for a grad year or guys that sat out and this was their 4th year in college, so they can't leave. They're going to be stuck there for another season. Or, the McDonald's All-Americans that went there expecting to try to go one and done and instead didn't play but 2 minutes in the NCAA tournament. I think that there were a lot of different forces that were pulling in all these different directions. And when you have that, plus a team that is basically built around okay, we're going to give it to our best players and let them do whatever the hell they want, that's not a recipe for success. And, they didn't beat anybody. I think that was the point everybody missed. They didn't beat anybody in the regular season.
Nope, they didn't. And, again, I think the Martin twins are good players. I think Jordan Caroline's a good player, but I think a lot of those transfers, we get all excited when teams add transfers that average 14, 13, 15 points a game, and not every transfer is a good transfer. And a lot of those kids didn't play at all this year, and I think they miss having a true point guard too. I think Cody, if the Drew kid was healthy, I actually think that would have made a big difference because they could have played Cody off the ball, and I think it would have helped having a true point guard like Lindsey Drew, and he obviously missed a year. So, yeah, Nevada, I'm with you. Disappointing. Can't believe they didn't beat the Jekyll and Hyde Florida team because that's what Florida was all year. But, all right, best game. For me, and again, I didn't see all of it, but I didn't need to see all of it for me to be the best game. I thought the best ending certainly was Auburn over New Mexico State.
That was wild,
man.
Kid
AJ Harris.
That was absolutely wild.
Harris, like, he got to the basket. Like, he was there for the layup. Now, maybe he thought he heard footsteps.
No, he talked about it after the game. He said that he saw Terrell Brown come open, and he wanted to play for the win instead of playing for a tie.
But if you know you have the tie, if you're there, I call BS on that. If you know you're there and you have an easy layup, you take the easy layup. You don't play for the win. You take that easy layup. I don't believe that. I think he felt like there was a chance that somebody was coming from behind and was going to block a shot or whatever. Anyway,
maybe, but I'll tell you this. After the way that it ended, I can see it's really easy to sit here and be like, "Oh man, he shouldn't have made that play." But if he kicked it out to the dude, he got fouled, he made all 3 of the threes, and they ended up winning, I'd love it. I'd love it. He's a hero. So I don't hate it. You're New Mexico State. You're probably not going to beat Auburn in overtime. Auburn is better than you. Why not take a shot at it? Why not?
Crazy play, though. Crazy play.
It was a crazy comeback. So here's the crazy thing about that game, since you didn't watch it. Auburn did everything they wanted to do for 34 minutes. They were playing Auburn basketball. They were forcing turnovers. They were getting threes. They were getting out in transition. Jared Harper was banging home like 30-footers. They were cruising. And then with like 6 minutes left, they completely forgot how to pass their own team. Like, they forgot what color jerseys they were wearing. Because I swear, in like the last 6 minutes, they looked like Louisville did in the last 10 minutes of that game against Duke. It was bad.
I was at some good games. I actually had a good day. It was good, and I knew it was going to be a good day today. Like, tomorrow or today, I think it's going to be a bad day of basketball for me. I think Virginia and Duke are going to rout. I think the other 2 games are like kind of ho-hum games, right? You got, what do I have, Ole Miss, Oklahoma to start it, and then mixed in there is VCU, UCF. So I think it's going to be a long day. 2 interesting storylines, obviously, Virginia being the biggest one, and Duke and Zion and what he does against the North Dakota State team. But today was good. As LSU, Yale, good solid basketball game. Like, Yale never put real pressure on until the end. Maryland, Belmont, hell of a game.
Yeah, I was going to say that's my pick for the game of the day.
Yeah, it was a great game. I mean, it really was. Like, to me, came right down to the end. Dylan Windler was sensational. Like, as good as Ja's performance was, Dylan Windler's wasn't far off. I mean, he was step back threes, just like dominating Maryland, a bigger, stronger Maryland team. And Phyllis had a good comp on Twitter. It's pretty good. Compared him to Gordon Hayward.
I can see it a little bit.
Like, he's not as good a passer as Hayward was in college. Probably a better shooter, but athletic, got the same body build. Gordon was a little bit thicker, but I like the comp.
Windler really has to improve his handle. Like, that's the big thing with him, and that's why it's been so hard for him to kind of get going against good teams, because he can kind of run off screens and do whatever he wants against OVC competition, because there's no wings that are 6'9" that could contest him. But most of these like power conference teams that he plays, they have guys that can kind of get up in him and contest those shots, and he doesn't really have the handle to be able to create his own looks. And that's why it was promising to see him go off like this against Maryland. But I'll tell you what, Jeff, the only thing I'm going to remember, like I really feel bad for Dylan in this moment, because he had like the game of his life, 35 points, Maryland, NCAA tournament. Belmont finally got a win in like the last time that they played, and it's like
I hope you remember what I remember from that game.
I'm going to remember him getting dunked on.
Sticks?
Yes, all over him.
That dunk was ferocious.
That's going to be on One Shining Moment. That's going to be a poster every single time that he goes anywhere near the state of Maryland. Everyone's going to be like, oh, that's the guy that got murdered by Jalen Smith.
It was ferocious. It was like, that's the Sticks I wanted to see all year. And Turge even said it. Turgeon said it after the game. He was like, we've been trying to get him tougher and tougher. I'm telling you, when NBA guys saw that, they're like, all right, you know what? Maybe we take him in the lottery this year. Maybe we don't have to wait another year for this kid. That was awesome. It was a good game, and then Kentucky pounds Abilene Christian. And honestly, I'm not kidding. I tell you, I was on the press row there, and the team came out, And right when I saw Abilene Christian, I tweeted it. I was like, this is going to get ugly. P.J. Washington, no P.J. Washington, didn't matter in this one. I mean, it was a blowout, and then the last game was great. First time I got a chance to see Fletcher McGee in person. And I went up to him after the game, and I said, man, I apologize because I haven't seen you in person before this year. Like, I felt bad. I felt like I cheated myself not seeing Fletcher McGee more in person and waiting until now. And I can't wait to come back for that game on Saturday. Saturday, back to Jacksonville to see that game. Because Kentucky, Wofford, like one of those games like you circle. And I don't know if Wofford can play with them. I think it'll help. P.J. Washington's not going to play. And that's a story we got to monitor here. P.J. Washington, he's in a boot right now, Rob.
Yeah, it's like a hard cast.
It's right. It's a cast. I'm sorry. It's a cast. And the cast will come off. They thought that that's the quickest way it would heal. So the cast will either come off tomorrow, but it sounds like the cast is coming off early next week. I think Cal would be shocked if the cast came off tomorrow. I think they're going to keep it on till Monday or Tuesday, take the cast off, and hope he can play next week. And I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know how bad it's going to be. I mean, how effective he'll be, too, if he comes back out of a cast and plays 2 days later.
Yeah. That's the thing about P.J. Washington, and I've made this point before. I think we talked about this before, is that when Kentucky went from being the team that we thought could be good to being the team that was legitimately and unquestionably great was when P.J. Washington turned into a superhuman. He had that, a 6-week stretch where he was the best player in college basketball. And that's what happens when they have him playing his best. That's what Kentucky can turn into. He's the guy that makes that difference. And I'm paraphrasing here, so don't yell at me if I get this quote wrong. But at some point, during that run, Cal said, we don't need P.J. Washington to go and score 35 points and get 20 rebounds every night, but we need him to play like he's trying to get 35 points and 20 rebounds every single night. And it's true.
Aggressive. Yeah.
That's when he changes things for him. And not having him, I think they can beat Wofford without him just because I don't think that he is where, for me, to beat Wofford, they basically just have to make sure that those Wofford shooters don't go absolutely bonkers. And I don't know how much P.J. Washington.
But they're going to make theirs. They're going to trade threes for twos. I think it comes down, honestly, Tyler Hero's got to make some.
Yeah, he does.
Sheldon Johnson's one of those has to make. I mean, they can't have one of their 2 for 15 3-point shooting performances because Wofford's going to make 10 or 12. And
that's the thing. If they go let's say they go 9 for 28. You can beat them that way. If they go 14 for 28, that's when it becomes a problem. And I don't know if P.J. Washington is the difference in that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, he's not. No, he's not. Fletcher McGee, man, the amount of space that dude needs to get off a shot, it was so fun to watch tonight. It was so fun to watch.
His release is unbelievable. As somebody that spent 12 years of my life doing nothing but trying to shoot the ball, get a release off as quickly as possible and do exactly what he does. I hope people comprehend just how difficult and just how much practice it takes to do what he's doing. And I actually had Mike Young on my podcast last week just because I wanted to talk to him about what it's like to coach Fletcher McGee. And he basically said, within the first week of practice, when Fletcher was a freshman, he's like, all right, I'm going to have to coach this dude differently. Because, I don't know if you remember those Wofford teams that made the tournament in, the 2010 or 2011.
Sure.
But they weren't doing this. They weren't doing what this group is doing. So Mike Young has had to, kind of pull back on the reins a little bit and let his guys go. And it was funny. I asked him what a bad shot was for Fletcher McGee. He's like, I don't think there is one.
No, it's amazing.
It's actually the mental part of it. Last thing, and then we can move on. The mental part of it is fascinating to me because he was like, I told my staff to never, ever, ever tell them that they think Fletcher took a bad shot. Like there was nothing that he could do that's a bad shot because he does not want Fletcher Magee shooting and having in the back of his head the thought like, oh, coach is going to be mad that I took this shot because he thinks it's a bad shot. He wants him to take what Fletcher Magee thinks are good shots and shoot that with 100% confidence. Because, I mean, we saw it tonight. Like he makes bad shots. He wets bad shots. And so just let him fire away.
No doubt.
That's the life, man. Is there a better life than being able to shoot the shots that Fletcher Magee takes?
No. And again, I mean, it was Fletcher and Miles going back and forth there for a little while in the second half. Miles was pretty quiet in the first half, but he got to go in the second half. I was like, all right, I'm all in on this one. I'm all in on this. And it was fun. I mean, again, the crowd was good today for the most part. Early, they struggled a little bit. And the LSU game was just okay, and then they started to come around a little bit late in that first session. And after the LSU game, I caught up with LSU athletic director Joe Oliva. I don't know if you saw these comments that he made, but he told me, I asked him about Will Wade and his status and kind of what's going on, and he said, "Listen, he hasn't talked to us, and I'm kind of disappointed that he hasn't talked to us. I wish he would. I just want the truth. Whatever the truth is, I want the truth." And, I almost felt like saying you can't handle the truth, but I did. It probably wasn't the right thing to do with the seriousness of the situation. But yeah, I mean, listen, Will Wade's not talking, not going to talk because his lawyers told him you can't talk. His lawyer's protecting him from prison, not the NCAA. So he's saying, no, you're not talking at all right now because we're not worried about your job. We're worried about bigger things, and we don't want you on trial or anything like that. And Joe Oliva's at a spot where he's saying, the hell with it. Like, if you're not talking, we're not going to reinstate you. That's for damn sure. And it could come to where they're going to terminate him at some point. I think they'll wait for the trial, certainly for mid-April, because by the end of this thing, the end of the Final Four, you're 2 weeks away from the trial starting. And then you see what else comes out, right? I mean, you might have that one call that Yahoo reported, but you got to make sure, you got to see if there's some other stuff that comes out with Will Wade. And then you got to make a decision. And I don't think it looks good for Will Wade ever coaching again. And, fun part will be, see how far this LSU team can go with all this stuff kind of swirling around them, because the further they go, the more media attention they get.
Yeah. And I'll be completely honest and tell you that, I am just so tired of everything involving this FBI story that I've kind of reached the point where, I'm thinking, at least you should just let Will Wade go. They're going to get hammered by the NCAA regardless of what happens. This season probably isn't going to end up existing anymore in 4 years. So why not just you have a team that could legitimately make a run to the Elite Eight, maybe to the Final Four?
They're good.
When are you ever going to have a team that is this talented again at LSU? So why not take a shot at it? That's kind of where I'm at with this.
So you'd fire him or you'd reinstate him?
I'd reinstate him. Let him go. See what happens.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thought process in all this. But I think now it's too late to do that. I think you had to do that right away. I think you had to just say, and you're LSU. Of any school, you could do it at LSU and just say, hey, the hell with it. We don't care. We're going to reinstate him.
It's basketball at LSU. Take a shot. Take a swing. Swing for the fences.
And they reinstated Javonte Smart. That's the part of this. Now, Javonte obviously sat down with LSU and so did the family. And they probably provided bank records and all that. But Javonte Smart's cleared. So you're saying that nothing happened there. So if nothing happened there, again, maybe you're worried that there's more, where there's smoke, there's more fire with Will. So anyway, all right, my voice is running I'm hurting a little bit here. Let's finish up with two more things. One, I want to get your thoughts, because I still haven't seen the full video of Tom Izzo going after the freshman.
Aaron Henry.
What's his name now? Christ, I'm tired.
Aaron Henry.
Yeah, there you go. He went after him pretty good. I saw the picture, and I'm like, all right, that's Izzo, like, at a day at the office. Like, I've seen Izzo do that 1,000 times, and people freaked out over it today. Like, justified or not?
I did not think that it was anything abnormal. I understand why people have an issue with coaches like going after players the way that they go after them. And to be clear, like that was not the only time where he got caught on camera just like getting into a kid and MFing him up and down the bench. Like Izzo was very, very fired up because his Michigan State team was playing very, very poorly and they looked like they were tired. Like that was my take on on what happened in that game. They looked like they were really, really tired, and that the idea of playing 3 games in 3 days to win a Big Ten tournament title was probably a bad idea. Is kind of what I saw in that game. But he was killing his guys. But the thing about Izzo is one, his players love him. I don't know if there is a coach who gets along better with his players than Tom Izzo does with his guys. Like his players love him. And the other part of it is if Aaron Henry screamed right back at Izzo, that would be okay. That's just the way that it works at Michigan State, and so I get it.
Is that what he did? Henry went right back at him.
No, he didn't. He didn't in this situation. But Izzo doesn't have a problem with his players going back at him because that's the relationship that they have. Like when they are in that competitive environment,
that's right.
Izzo gets fired up and he goes at his guys, and he wants his guys to be fired up and going right back at him. So that is the that's the culture that Tom Izzo wants within his program. So on the one hand, I get it. It's a bad look to be going after an amateur, unpaid 18-year-old kid like that. But on the other hand, this is what Tom Izzo is trying to foster because he wants his guys to play hard, and he has no problem with them coming right back at him because that's the energy that he's expecting out of them. And you see this with Frank Martin too, and how he gets on his guys, and Bobby Huggins and how he gets on his guys. If your players know that you love them and you care about them and you're going to fight for them no matter what, and then you're getting on them because they are not getting the most out of themselves, if they know that it's coming from a place of love, then they don't it's not going to no 18-year-old's feelings are going to really get hurt, right? And if they come back at you and they respond to it, that's what you want. So I understand the optics of it. I can't myself get all up in arms about what happened in this particular situation.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's Izzo, it's Self, it's Calipari, it's some of the best coaches in the game. It's old school. It's not Brad Stevens. It's not Fred Hoiberg. It's not Steve Prohm. A lot of those guys, they're different. To each their own. You can't hit a kid these days. We know that, right? That's over the line. Can you MF them? Yeah, again, it's coaching. It's coaching. Those kids knew what they were getting into when they signed up to play for Tom Izzo and Bill Self and John Calipari. They knew. If they didn't, they're pretty stupid. So Aaron Henry knew what he was going to get. He was going to get coached. And his parents probably knew what he was going to get, that he's going to get coached. So I don't have a major problem with it at all.
Yeah, there's a line. There's a line that anybody can cross, and I just don't think in this situation that Izzo crossed it. Now, one of the issues that people have is the quote he had afterwards, where he basically said you work for a newspaper, you have employees. If your employees weren't getting the best out of them, wouldn't you challenge them to be better? And that probably was not the best way to phrase that statement, to compare unpaid student athletes to employees with bosses in a professional setting.
Hey, how great would that be if you're writing a story and your boss comes over and starts MFing you in the middle, you're on deadline writing a story and they get right up in your face with this screaming at you as you're writing. I would pay to watch that. I'd pay to watch Norlander. Somebody screaming at Norlander. He would cry. He'd break down and cry.
I don't know how I would hit it. It would be very distracting. I know I wouldn't hit deadline.
Who could handle that? Which writer could handle that the best? That's a podcast for another day. Which writer could handle? Yeah.
Tom Izzo screaming in their face as they were filing a column. You know who probably could? Brendan Quinn, who is Michigan State's beat writer for The Athletic, just because like Brendan's a Philly, and he's a Philly guy through and through. He's been yelled at, and he spent like 5 years bartending in Philly, so he's been yelled at a few times.
I got one. I got the guy. I got the guy. Greg Doyle.
Yes, definitely.
Greg Doyle.
He might not even realize someone's yelling at him.
Right, he'd enjoy it. He would absolutely enjoy it. He'd look up, smile, and then now he writes faster than anybody in the world anyway. So it takes him like 10 minutes to carve out like 1,500 words. But that would be, you know what? I would like to get that. Maybe we can make that happen. Doyle's filing a column at the Final Four, and we'll bring over like hugs and just have him scream at Doyle. Great. Tremendous. All right, last thing.
Now, it would be great if we didn't tell him beforehand.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Maybe we'll do that. Like we'll just give hugs like a 12-pack.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to, no, but and not just to whoever we pick. We are allowed 5 writers, a 12-pack and a bottle of bourbon to yell at 5 writers.
Tremendous. All right, how much more time? What are we at right now? Do we have time to hit on Avery Johnson?
Yeah, let's do it. Then let's get out of here.
All right, we're doing it. Avery Johnson. Multiple people reported that a buyout is in the works. Greg Byrne is going to fire Avery Johnson. Ultimately, here he owes him some money. Avery Johnson, to me, one of the more disappointing jobs of the season. I picked them in my preseason top 25 like an idiot.
Told you not to do it.
Point guard spot. Yeah, it was dumb. I worried about the point guard spot, and that's like the one thing. The Lewis kid was terrific this year. But, like, John Petty didn't get any better. Herb Jones didn't get any better. Like, this was a talented team, in my opinion, and he's gone once in 4 years. And I think they barely went last year with Colin Sexton. Barely got in. So, Avery's gone. And here's the interesting part. Ready? Let's play a little game here of what if. So Fred Hoiberg's basically done in Nebraska. Okay, I reported about 3-4 days ago that Hoiberg's the front runner, and it's pretty close to being done, if not done.
The worst kept secret in basketball circles.
What's that?
The worst kept secret in basketball circles.
That's right. So what if Steve Prohm really wanted the Alabama job last time around? He went to school at Alabama. He was a manager at Alabama. Okay? So what if he's got a big buyout at Iowa State right now, but after Iowa State is eliminated, could Prohm go to Alabama? Because it's hard to say no to your alma mater. And it's not like Iowa State is some elite-level job. They're probably comparable jobs, ultimately. You know, Iowa State's probably – it's a better basketball job, obviously, but, you know, they're not that far off if you're ranking them in terms of jobs. So what if he waits, he goes to Alabama? What do you do if you're Fred Hoiberg now? You're hearing these rumors. You're probably going to call Steve Prohm and say, like, hey, or your agent is – they might have the same agent, actually, and find out, are you going? And if you're going, if you're Fred Hoiberg, are you going back home to Ames, or are you going to Nebraska where your grandfather coached?
That's a tough decision. That would be a tough decision. I would probably – I don't know. I don't know.
I know.
But
it's not easy. You could slow play this. I mean, you could definitely slow play it and say, hey, I'm not ready yet. I need another few days to think about this thing. And see, you know, again, it probably depends, too. Did Steve Prohm, if Iowa State goes to, like, the Sweet 16, you're going to have to wait another week.
Mm-hmm. Leave Tim Miles twisting in the wind.
I don't know how this thing's going to work.
But
Miles could win the NIT.
To your point,
Tim Miles wins the NIT?
I hope he does. I love every second of Tim Miles keeping this Nebraska thing alive. It's so funny to me, especially because Timmy is like handling this like nothing's happening. Like he's the happiest guy in the world, and he's about to get fired. Everybody knows he's going to get fired. He's always got a smile on his face. He's over here like falling while running into the tunnel. It's just everything about it. It's perfectly Tim Miles. But to your point about Steve Prohm. Like when Texas A&M opened up, one of the things that I heard was Prohm was going to throw his name in the ring there and see if he could end up getting it because he was a guy from the South, and you know maybe Texas A&M.
You know why?
Because they're going to get buzz.
I'll give you two reasons. One's buzz. Two, he was in Murray State under Billy Kennedy, so they never hired him.
Yeah, well, what the thinking was is that BK wasn't going to get fired. He was going to get shifted. This was a little while back. BK wasn't going to get fired.
He was going to get moved.
He was going to get shifted into like an administration role. Then he was going to part of the deal was going to be like you could bring Prohm in and Prohm get out of because he wants out of Iowa State. So I think to connect dots, I think part of the reason why this buyout could be happening the way that it's happening is because maybe Alabama knows something about what Steve Prohm wants to do at Iowa State. Does that make sense?
Greg Byrne is pretty smart. Okay, Greg Byrne's one of the more well-connected ADs out there. More of a football guy, obviously, but he was at Arizona. He inherited John Miller. He didn't hire him. But they became very close. So Byrne's got a lot of people he talks to. So you're probably right. You're probably right in the sense that if he's making a move with Avery, he knows he's got somebody. He's not making this move and going fishing. Like, he knows he's got somebody, whether it's Steve Prohm, whether it's Kelvin Sampson, whoever it is.
Greg Marshall, they gave him a blank check last time. I don't know if you could still make that hire with Greg Marshall at this point, but that was definitely a name that was in there.
I'm not sure Greg Marshall would. It'd be interesting. I don't know how that would work with Nick Saban. Like, I don't think that's the perfect fit for Nick Saban.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right. I also don't know if that is the perfect fit for Greg Marshall either. Like, I don't know if he already said no to Alabama once, why would he be saying no to it again when now he has Wichita State in the league that matters?
Right. He wants, again, to me, he wants an elite job if he's going to leave Wichita. And Alabama's not elite. Texas A&M's not elite. Like, those aren't. To me, again, he's not leaving Wichita unless he can get an elite job.
Anyway, you're getting paid at Wichita. You can make the tournament at Wichita. You might as well stay in a place where you're going to be God forever and never going to get fired unless you can get like Kentucky or Carolina or something, or UCLA maybe.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, maybe he backs his way into UCLA now because John Calipari made a lot of money. Will make a lot of money with that UCLA rumor, right? I would love to know who put it out there because it's laughable the fact that he would even think of going to UCLA, even for that money. If that is true.
Do you know how much money they would have to spend? I bet that what they were paying Steve Alford would not cover what John Calipari would expect the bill to be to pay for like his personal plane, his suits. The travel that they're going to have to take when they're recruiting, the travel that they're going to have to take if they're chartering flights to and from anywhere. And that doesn't even mention the fact that you got to pay him at least 5 times what Steve Alford was making to be able to cover up the fact that he makes like $9.5 million at Kentucky and he's moving from Lexington to LA. Like, they have to invest more into that program than they probably invested in the renovation of Pauley Pavilion annually.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, the only way John Calipari leaves Kentucky is for an NBA job. And I've talked to a ton of GMs, and a ton of them say they would not even think of hiring John Calipari. Now, there is a small segment that probably would. But a lot of those jobs aren't also the jobs that John Calipari would take in the NBA. So it's got to be the perfect storm for him to leave. Maybe a organization in which they've already got some of his players, or they're trying to get one of his players or something like that. I don't know. I mean, again, and I don't know how many of his players want to play for him in the NBA when they're making more money than him. It was fine in college, but you think they want to get yelled at and screamed at all game? I mean, I saw that up close with Rick Pitino in the NBA, and maybe Cal would change. But I don't know.
You'd have to. You'd have to in this day and age. You'd have to. There's no way you can survive in the NBA as a screamer.
I think they get better. I think they certainly pull back a little bit, but I don't know. The Calipari's, the Izzos. I think it's hard at this stage of their career. They definitely change. I mean, you watched Billy Donovan, right? And Billy Donovan's changed. So I do think you can. But
was he a screamer at Florida? I don't remember that.
What's that?
Was Billy Donovan a screamer? I always kind of imagined like the same kind of stoic, arms always crossed, shirt always perfectly tucked in, never wearing a jacket. Like, he's basically Mike White, just with a worse hairline.
No, he was more animated. he's definitely more animated than Mike White, but he's calmed down even more in the NBA. But he was not like Calipari is. No. But I just go back to like watching Antoine Walker with Pitino, and like Pitino could coach him in college, but then when Antoine got to the pros, he's like, shit, fuck this. Like, I don't want to deal with this guy now. I'm making more money. I don't want to be yelled at for 48 minutes. I was yelled at for 40. Now I get 8 more minutes I get yelled at? Hell no. So I don't know, like if you're Anthony Davis or whoever, John Wall or Devin Booker or whoever it's going to be, like, do you really want to deal with that at the NBA? No, you want to deal with a coach that's more like Brad Stevens. It's more like Doc Rivers even. I think it's different. Anyway, all right, it's 1:30 now. We've been on this way too long, and I should have you look up a hotel for me and book a hotel for me at this point, because I got to get off the phone and find something.
You don't want to put me in charge of booking the hotel for you.
No, you'll book. You would book a dump in Savannah, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know what I'm going to get. But again, like now I'm really miserable over the fact that I have to be back for a 12:30 game.
12:10
on Saturday morning, which means 12:10, even worse. What am I going to do?
I don't know. That's gonna be the LSU. What is that? LSU Maryland. That's gonna be the LSU Maryland game.
No, it's a good game. I got 2 good games there. So I don't know. I'll figure it out. It's taking a little bit of luster away from whatever hotel room I'm going to stay in tomorrow night now. But it is what it is. All right. Thanks, Rob Dauster. Appreciate it. You can listen to Rob's podcast. Do plug it, Rob.
It's the College Basketball Talk podcast by NBC Sports. Anywhere that you get your podcast for free, you can find this. So please, after you give Goodman's podcast 5 stars and after you say nice things about him in the reviews, do the same for me.
All right, there you go. Thank you for listening to the Good and Plenty podcast. We may have another one. Listen, Rob and I may do another one tomorrow night when I'm driving back to Savannah from Columbia. Right, Rob?
Yeah, it might be a daily thing now. Got to.
Why not? All right, have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.